Call the order. Everyone join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please. Supervisors Kohlmeyer, Esposito, Gable, Arrington, Gentz, Noble, Hallman are all excused for this evening's blue flu in July. What's that? Supervisor Poole, could you try hitting your button again, please? All right, and here comes Mr. Hallman, so we'll hold up just a sec. Gonna move to citizen comments, please. Citizen comments. Citizen comments. No one wishing to speak. We'll close that. Announcements to the chairman. I just have one. Congratulate Boyd Frederick, who was elected to the board of the directors by the WCA. Appreciate your effort in that regard. Congratulations to you. We'll go on to supervisor reports. Here comes Supervisor Noble. So everyone's clock's a little slow this evening. Supervisor reports. Do you have anything to report tonight, Supervisor Noble?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Glad you waited. Thank you. I just want to announce that the UW Extension has a meeting or a presentation called Because of Extension on Wednesday, July 22nd. At 4 p.m. So the public is invited, participants, volunteers, whoever wants to come and find out what UW Extension does. That meeting will be July 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Noble. Seeing no other supervisor reports, we'll move on to new business. County Clerk.
Ordinance 9 from the Planning Development Extension Education Committee, Town of Salem owner, Salem Business Park LLC agent, requesting a rezoning from BP1 Business Park District and C1 Lowland Resource Conservancy District to BP1 Business Park District and C1 Lowland Resource Conservancy District with a planned unit development overlay in the Town of Salem. Noble, yes. Decker, yes. Skalitsky, yes. Redsloff, yes. Gable.
What's that? Turn the volume up, please.
Gable excused.
Supervisor Noble.
I move ordinance number 9.
Ordinance number 9's been moved by Supervisor Noble, seconded by Supervisor Decker. Supervisor Noble.
This property is located on the north side of County Highway C, which is also Wilmot Road, approximately 900 feet east of the intersection of 251st Avenue. The rezoning would correct wetlands based upon field delineation and would place a planned unit development upon the development. The Town of Salem recommended approval of the request, as did the committee.
Thank you. Seeing no lights, this is a simple majority vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed. Passes unanimously. County Clerk.
Ordinance 10 from the Planning Development Extension Education Committee, Lance A. and Deborah A. Platts owner, requesting a rezoning from A2 General Agricultural District to A2 General Agricultural District and R2 Suburban Single Family Residential District in the Town of Wheatland. Noble, yes. Decker, yes. Skalitsky, yes. Redsloff, yes. Gable excused.
Supervisor Noble.
I move ordinance number 10.
Ordinance 10's been moved by Supervisor Noble, seconded by Supervisor Skalitsky. Supervisor Noble.
This property is located on the 60th Street, Geneva Road, approximately 400 feet east of 392nd Avenue. The rezoning would allow for a lot line adjustment to increase the size of an adjacent parcel.
Okay, seeing no lights, simple majority. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. County Clerk?
Ordinance 11 from the Planning Development Extension Education Committee, Salem Business Park LLC, requesting a rezoning from BP1 Business Park District and C1 Lowland Resource Conservancy District to BP1 Business Park District and C1 Lowland Resource Conservancy District with a plan unit development overlay in the town of Salem. Noble, yes. Decker, yes. Galitsky, yes. Retzloff, yes. Gable excused.
Supervisor Noble?
I move ordinance number 11.
Ordinance number 11's been moved by Supervisor Noble, seconded by Supervisors Ritzloff. Supervisor Noble.
This property is located on the northeast corner of the intersection of County Highway C and Wilmot Road, which is Wilmot Road, and 254th Court. And the rezoning would correct wetlands based upon field delineation and would place a planned unit development upon the property or the development. The town of Salem recommended approval of the request.
Thank you. Seeing no lights, simple majority vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. County Clerk?
Resolution 18 from Finance Administration Committee, a resolution to transfer tax deeded property to city for purposes of remediation. Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, excused. O'Day, excused. Kohlmeyer, excused. Brunig, yes. Gens, yes. Dodge, yes.
Supervisor Rose.
Thank you. On behalf of the Finance Committee, I would move Resolution 18.
Resolution 18's been moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Vice Chair Bruning. Supervisor Rose.
This is a resolution to transfer some tax deeded property, first to the city, but ultimately to the Unified School District for their purposes. The Department of Natural Resources has indicated that this is a spot that needs remediation and the potential public hazard to it. So it is unlikely that anyone would want to take this over except perhaps the school district for their purposes. This resolution is to deed it to the city for the purposes of remediation and then ultimately to the school district for their use.
Thank you. Seeing no lights, this is a simple majority vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Resolution 18 passes unanimously. County Clerk?
Resolution 19 from Finance Administration, a resolution authorizing and providing for the issuance of not to exceed $18,550,000 general obligation Brookside Care Center bonds, providing for the notification and sale of said bonds and other related details. Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, excused. O'Day, excused. Kohlmeyer, excused. Brunig, yes. Gens, yes. Dodge, yes.
Supervisor Rose.
On behalf of the committee, I would move resolution number 19.
Resolution 19's been moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Supervisor Dodge. Supervisor Rose.
This is the resolution which would pay for the construction of the Brookside Care Center additions, which the board has talked about. Presentations have been made to us. So I'm not going to again review what has been talked about for some period of time. This $18,550,000 is for the construction of that facility. If you recall, originally we talked about and where it was recommended that this be done in 2 increments, in other words, 2 bond sales. This resolution changes that original thought that was discussed, that it seems more feasible to do this in one authorization, one resolution, as opposed to 2 authorizations and 2 resolutions over 2 consecutive years. For these reasons: 1, there's the obvious saving of money for fees, the attorney's fees for the resolution, for the Ehlers and Associates for their fees, for the bond. All of those become one. But most importantly, the thought, recommendation of representatives from Ehlers is that this is the time to do it, that it is more likely than not that if we passed half of it now and half of it next year the interest rates are going to be higher then than they are now. There's no guarantee of that, but if you read what the bond market says, that seems to be the recommendation and thought, that bond interest rates will go up, and it will cost us more money in the long run to break this down into two resolutions, as the second would undoubtedly be at a higher interest rate than the one before us this evening. And therefore, we're recommending to you that you adopt resolution number 19 for the full sum of payment of the Brookside edition, $18,550,000.
Thank you. Seeing no lights, this is a simple majority vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No.
A roll call requested?
We'll do a roll call. Yes if you're in favor, no if you're against resolution 19. Yes if you're in favor, no if you're against. It passes 16-2.
Resolution 20 from Finance Administration Committee, resolution authorizing and providing for the issuance of not to exceed $12,485,000 general obligation promissory notes, providing for the notification and sale of said notes and other related details. Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, excused. O'Day, excused. Colmeyer, excused. Brunig, yes. Gens, yes. Dodge, yes.
Supervisor Rose.
On behalf of the committee, I would move the resolution.
Resolution 20 has been moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Vice Chair Bruning. Supervisor Rose.
Resolution number 20 before you is one which finances the various capital projects that were authorized in the budget that was just adopted for 2015 by this board. These are the items that we have reviewed at committee level, and then we adopted at the time of the budget in November. And this is the financing mechanism for those capital projects.
Thank you, sir. Seeing Supervisor Poole wishing to speak, Supervisor Poole, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe this bonding puts us still over $100 million in bonding. And Chicago has excessively used bonding to finance its books, and this year had its bond rating reduced. I believe we need to reduce our bonding, not increase it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Poole. Seeing no other lights, roll call has been requested. You want to speak on this again, Supervisor?
One concern I think that Supervisor Poole noted, and I think it's certainly of concern to the Finance Committee and this board, and that is our bond rating. We're interested in seeing that rating go up, and I think that we are doing a good deal of things at the Finance Committee level as well as this board, which give direction to an upward movement of our bond rating, not a downward movement. If we thought that this resolution or the prior resolution would cause our bond rating to go down or be looked at it from a negative perspective, we certainly would address that. But the committee on a number of occasions has talked about what are the kinds of things that we can do and are doing to see to it that we become a AAA rated county. I think that certainly is our goal, and we're keeping that in mind every time an issue comes before us. We addressed that issue this last Finance Committee meeting. We're making some recommendations to you with respect to some policy language on financial issues that we will bring before the board. So this is something that's very much in our mind. The fact that we've increased our reserve fund rather substantially is another very good reason why we're not spending that. We're not recommending that we spend that. We're interested in increasing that fund from 17%, at least 17%, of our operating expenses. Right now, they're in the neighborhood of 24 to 25%. So we're doing things and we're acting in ways which we would hope would persuade the people like Moody's or Standard & Poor's or Fitch to increase that bond rating, and we're certainly going to make that argument later this month when a presentation is made to Standard & Poor's.
Thank you. Seeing no other, well, we've got one other light. Supervisor Skalitsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the chair of the committee, has there been any measurable improvement in the rating, in Kenosha County's bond rating that you spoke of within the last 4 or 5 years?
Yes, and Dave, I would ask Dave to address that specifically.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you recall, at our last rating that we did in February at Standard & Poor's, they upgraded our outlook to positive, which means that the odds of increasing our bond rating are between 1 and 2 and 1 and 3. And since they gave us that upgrade in our outlook, the trends that we reported then in February are even looking better. One major metric that they look at will be property values. We've done some evaluation. I expect property values to increase, but we'll get a preliminary on that on July 31st. So we did get an improvement in our outlook from stable to positive, which means that if we stay on this track, we would be expecting an upgrade in our bond rating from AA1 to AA, from AA2 to AA1 at Standard & Poor's.
So, if you might, Mr. Chairman, to our finance director, the primary improvement in the outlook is due to property value increases?
No, it's many factors. They take many factors into account. One major item was the improvement in reserves, where we had a 30% increase in our reserves from at year-end 2014 compared to year-end 2013. That was one major factor. If you recall, the property value went up about 2%. So we didn't have a significant increase in our property value. So despite the fact that it went up 2%, they still gave us a positive outlook. And if we continue on the path with sound reserves and the property values do come back, then we'll stand a good chance of getting a full increase in the bond rating.
And I don't know if it would have come up in the discussion or the presentation. Did they talk at all about concerns over a county of our size with the budget that we have, having long-term debt over $100 million? How much of a factor does that play into it? Or did it even come up?
In the rating that we get from Standard & Poor's, and I can't remember the exact verbiage, I'm going to try to remember it. It's they believe that the amount of debt is manageable and acceptable. You know, they have words like that in the bond rating. They don't say it's too high or that we're going to be getting a downgrade or that we're getting a negative outlook because our debt is too high. Basically, what has happened is we've actually had a decline in our GO debt. If you go back to 2012, it's about 95 million, I think it's, and then it maintained the same level at the end of 2014. The other debt that we're looking at, the 18 million, is funded with revenue, so they take that into account also. So if you look at their bond rating, it doesn't have the comments in it that our debt is too high, and we fully disclosed everything that you see before you tonight. We disclosed the Brookside project, we disclosed the amount that we're borrowing tonight, and we're actually not borrowing it tonight, but you're setting the sale and you're approving the terms of the issue and the structure. We fully disclosed all of that and our borrowing plans going forward 5 years, and they gave us a positive outlook. And if we work within those parameters and maintain our bond rating, sound management, the economy continues to improve with a lot of the work we've been doing through CABA and other entities, getting lots of the economic development that we've had a windfall of over the last couple of years. We were positioned to get an upgrade. Now, when we go to market, the positive outlook does also help us. It's not the full upgrade, but it does help us in the marketplace as far as getting lower cost.
And the bonding that we're asking for here, I see maybe a majority of it for road improvement infrastructure. Some of it was, I know, on public safety software. Was there anything else that this was earmarked for, Dave? That I tried to read through it, but I might have missed something.
Yeah, if you open your book up, your budget book, the CIP, you'll see the $12 million that we're bonding for. And there's some IT in there, there's road work, we're borrowing for the public safety software. Those are the main things.
And regarding the IT and the software, is it common for us to bond for those?
Yeah, not only is it a common practice for Kenosha County, but it's a common practice in the private and public sector. The way we're doing it is plain vanilla, acceptable. It's done in the private and public sector.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Sklitsky. We'll move on to Supervisor Decker. You have the floor.
Through the chairman to Mr. Geertsen. I believe I heard it. I just want to verify. So this is the authorizing the issuance. So this is not the sale. Does that mean when you guys meet at the end of this month, it could, that should, hopefully, because of our positive outlook, reduce the cost? We're not like doing this before it would help us.
It's correct that this is you're authorizing the issuance and the structure of the debt. We'll sell them on August 18th, and then we'll bring that back to the board to approve that. Everything that you have before you has been reported to the rating agencies. We'll give them an update, but we just recently reported in February because we did a refunding. If you remember, we saved, I think, $600,000 on a refunding. So they have all of this information. They know it. So we'll get our bond rating before we go to market, so we'll have that. And that will then be one factor that'll determine the cost of the money.
Okay, so since we're actually selling the bonds after we get our updated rating, we could have a better rate versus if we would do it right now.
It's possible. It's when they give us. I'm going to guess, knock on wood. It'd be nice if we got the upgrade, but I'm going to say we probably need at least one more cycle before we'll get that. I mean, we just got that in February, so.
Okay.
But that's correct. We will get our bond rating, and we'll get that locked down before we sell. So whatever that is, it'll be known to the marketplace when we go to sell the debt.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Decker. Seeing no other lights, roll call was requested by Vice Chair Bruning. If you're in favor of Resolution 20, vote yes. If you're not in favor, vote no. Passes 17-1.
Resolution 21 from Finance Administration Committee, a resolution 2016 Kenosha County Budget Advisory Levy Objective. Rhodes, yes. Ron Frederick excused. O'Day excused. Kohlmeyer excused. Brunig, yes. Gens, yes. Dodge, yes.
Supervisor Rose.
On behalf of the committee, I would move resolution number 21.
Resolution 21's been moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Supervisor Dodge. Supervisor Rose.
Thank you. This is a resolution that this board has adopted annually for quite a number of years. The originator was former County Supervisor Joe Clark. The aim of the resolution is to give some guidance up front to the executive that this is the kind of budget that we would like to see for the year 2016, as we have done in the past. This is for an increase not to exceed 2.5%. It doesn't mean we're telling the executive that we want to see 2.5%, but I want to underscore it says not to exceed 2.5%. I'm all in favor of this kind of resolution because it does give guidance to the administration. It gives guidance to the general public, and I think it's fiscally responsible.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Ritzloff, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to vote no on this, primarily because I think I've expressed my concern on the health insurance issue, and as you can see, there's a big matzo ball of $900,000 in this, and I was told, as you politely told me, that this is maybe going to be looked at in August. I just think we should delay this till we attack a big number like that, and then come up with a levy suggestion. So that's why I'm going to vote no. I just think it's too early because of that one extremely large expense. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Ritzloff. Supervisor Sklitsky, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I share Supervisor Rowe's appreciation for this resolution because I think it helps guiding. The one issue that I have is the number that's been put in there. Now, I've been on this board for 3 years. I've yet to see a resolution come out that recommends or guides the administration to a zero increase, or maybe even perhaps a decrease. The board's responsibility is for oversight and to represent our constituents' best interest. These are not robust economic times. Many of my constituents haven't seen a raise in many years. And so I don't support any kind of an increase at this point in time, and I would challenge the administration to go back, sharpen a pencil, and find out a way to either keep it neutral, like they have shown in the past, or even provide a decrease in the levy to give a little bit of relief to our constituents and the taxpayers. It's important for us to help advise and provide oversight to the administration, not just be a rubber stamp, so I also do not support this resolution at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Sklitsky. We'll move on to Supervisor Decker. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to the chair of the committee, or if you can't answer it, whoever. On the 2016 levy forecast, the $750,000 for the DHS income maintenance covered by state GPR, what is that for?
Dave, can you, let me defer to Mr.
Thank you.
Gersten on that one.
I'm going to have to get you a chair up there.
That estimate is based on, I'm pretty sure it's based on a reduction that was phased in over 2 years. I think you know GPR is general program revenue, and they use that to phase out $1.5 million of revenue in human services. And so we're phasing out the last year of that.
So this is the last year. I believe it was a 4-year phase-out kind of thing.
4 years. Did I say 2? Meant, okay.
So this is the last year of that phase-out. So this should be the last time we actually see that line item on here, hopefully?
Should be the last time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Decker. We'll move on to Supervisor Boyd Frederick. You have-
Just wanted to do a correction for something that was said earlier. I believe during, when Gens was chairman, we did have a 0% increase in one of our budgets. So it has been in the last 4 years that has occurred.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. Seeing no other lights, we've got roll call.
Mr.
Has been
Chairman.
requested.
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
sir.
I have my light on.
I I had you on from before, I'm sorry. Supervisor Rose, you have the
All
floor
right, thank
before
you.
we move on.
I think it's also worth noting on this 2016 levy forecast attached to the resolution that the levy increase for the average home, assuming that it was 2.5%, the levy increase is less than 1%. It's 0.8% shown here. If it comes in less than that, of course, the increase will be less, and it could theoretically be a decrease as well. We have seen that in the past since we've been adopting these budget resolutions, and prior to this, we saw increases substantially more than 5% on an annual basis. If you look back at the history prior to the commencement of this annual levy resolution recommendation, the percentage increases were rather substantial. We have not seen that since the adoption of this type of annual recommendation.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Poole, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with some of the other supervisors around here that I think we could get by with a 0% increase, and I'd like to move that we change this to a 0%, not 2.5.
All right, we have a amendment to the current resolution to move it from 2.5 down to 0, and it was moved by Supervisor Poole, seconded by Supervisor Decker. On that motion, is there anybody wishing to speak on that? We've got a few here, okay. Supervisor Alverman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wish to speak for a couple of reasons. I haven't been a huge fan of this resolution over the years. Initially, I think it was a good thought and a good start back when we had 5% and 6% and 7% increases. And I think the county executives have paid attention. I think this county executive has done more than pay attention. I think the 2 years ago when we did the 2.2 or 2.25, he came in at a 0. So I think this is a big waste of time. I think it's a nice little gingerbread to throw around, but when push comes to shove and when people get to work on the budget, all the departments, the county executive, the county board, the finance committee, we come up with a number. I think this is silly, and it's given people time for a foolish debate here this evening, if you'll excuse me. 0, and I want -2, and I want this. I just think it's a waste of time. If you look back at your property taxes, the year that we had a 0 for the county, mine went up 9% in the town of Anna. So what we do here is very important, but what everyone does, what the state cut this year from the school districts is going to hit everybody, big time. Pay attention to that. Go to your school. Talk to your governor if you can find him in the state ever. So this is, in my mind this evening, we're going to have a lot of buttons pushed here tonight, a big waste of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Alverman. We'll go back to Supervisor Rose. You have the floor.
Keep in mind, and again, looking at this 2016 levy forecast, in order to fund those anticipated increases in the levies, many of which we don't necessarily have control of, and if you take a look at where the increases will be in revenues coming in, such as sales tax revenue, this projected 2016 levy forecast requires $2.6 million of anticipated cuts. If you go to the 0, I've just talked to Mr. Gersten, and he says that then we're looking at about $4 million worth of cuts. So keep that in mind when you vote. That's a very substantial decrease and requiring some very, very deep cuts This will require deep cuts. $2.6 million requires deep cuts. And this is, you have to keep in mind, what are the increases here in the levy? What are the increases in revenues coming in? And then decide. Now, this 2.5% that is listed in the resolution, keep in mind, it says not to exceed. It doesn't say 2.5%, that's what you've got to do. It says don't exceed that figure. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rolls. We'll move on to Supervisor Ritzloff. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I have a little hard time thinking that one of our supervisors called talking about a tax levy silly and a waste of time. I find that kind of unusual. But I sat through all of the, and I think when we looked at the budget and stuff like that, I think if you remember, Supervisor Kohlmeyer voted against it because he said no one did anything. No one asked for a cut in the committee, not 1 cent. They just approved everything. So to not look at this and take some time and dissect a little bit this, I find that not a waste of time. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Ritzloff. We'll move on to Supervisor Decker.
Supervisor Retzloff made my comments. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Move on to Supervisor Skalitsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think only in government can you call an increase a decrease, but we do that commonly here. Without challenging the administration to take a look at where can we cut waste, where can we use the tools that our governor has provided for us and be able to be more efficient with the massive amounts of money that this county uses to run itself, and not just continually take a status quo, and certainly not look back into the history when economic times around this community were much more robust. But those large factories, those large employers, they're gone. And they're not coming back. So to look back in the days of 15 and 20%, I have no idea who was authorizing those, and then say, well, yeah, but we're doing that much better. Okay, we should be proud of ourselves, but we can do even better. And the private sector is constantly challenged to take a look at what they're doing. If the numbers don't work out, if the investors aren't happy, they're told to cut. But I haven't seen the cuts. It doesn't translate it into the levy. Did we pass a budget at 0%? Yes, we did, but the resolution was not for 0. So I'm proud of the fact that we did that, but let's be honest, that was at the depths of the economic downturn. I find this debate very worthwhile. I find this exercise to be very important. And I share the other supervisors' concerns over the fact that we have supervisors that think that this is a waste of time. It is not. If it is, then maybe you shouldn't be sitting on this board, because this is what we are elected and paid to do, to scrutinize, review, and debate how taxpayers' money is to be spent. And every one of us in this room is a taxpayer. I travel a lot. I see other parts of the country, and property taxes are substantially lower. And I can't say I see a substantial amount of difference in what those communities look like, how their roads are, how the services are, what the constituents and population looks like. So I know we can do better. But we need to challenge ourselves and this administration to do so and not consider this a waste of time. I do share the importance of this resolution, and I do look at it as being important because it is a guiding principle or a guiding recommendation that we as a board are providing. And so that's why I am in support of a resolution or the motion to bring this resolution to a number of 0. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Skalitsky. We'll move on to Supervisor Hallman. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not in favor of this at all. I would wonder, why is it a 0? Why not make it -5? Why not make it -10, -30? Why stop at 0? And so I would wonder, to the folks that are questioning this, I would say, how far are you willing to go? You know, we run a jail. and a sheriff's department that is primarily levy funded. How many folks do you want to get rid of there and risk public safety? We have a health department and a job training center that has received rave reviews for helping our citizens and businesses come together to find employment to make our community stronger. You really want to cut into that? How far are you willing to go? And it's funny because when we deal with personnel matters, we talk about this place like it's a corporation. When we deal with finance, just in the general sense, we talk about this place like it's a corporation. When the word tax or levy comes up, then we want to use the word government, but it's completely divorced from the responsibility that we have to take care of the public. I don't understand that. We just sat here questioning our bond rating and what it takes to get it higher so that we can be fiscally sound. You look at many areas of human services, what we're doing is we're packaging stuff, part tax levy, small amount, bringing in stuff from the state and stuff from the feds to make a whole program. You yank a couple of things out of there, it becomes like a game of Jenga and everything falls apart, and we're no longer fiscally sound and our people are in shambles. So my question again is, how far are you willing to go? This is a very entertaining idea, it's fantastic, but in reality I don't think it's practical. There needs to be better consideration about what this means, and I don't think a 0% necessarily does that. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hallman. Supervisor Anita Johnson, you have the floor.
First, I just want to address one thing that Supervisor Hallman stated about our detention centers. I want to point out that they're at an all-time low, our occupancy. Because of the wristband or ankle bracelet program that the sheriff implemented, our jails are actually at an all-time low, which is why we can't find people to work at the golf courses. So that aside, I've never been a fan of this, and for one reason. I think that if we're going to recommend something, we need to recommend what's best in the interest of the people, and that is to either lower it or keep it at what it is at least. I want to say that Supervisor Alverman made some good comments, but I think, unfortunately, there are more reason to vote for this at a 0 than for what he was supporting. If he had a 0% tax levy increase and still had a 9% increase on his taxes, what does that say? So why are we adding to that? All right, yes, the schools are going to be a mess and we're going to have to pay for that. So why are we heaping on to that in addition? How can that possibly be an excuse for us to feel okay about making that even larger? So, again, I'm not a fan of this because the way we use it every year, it's 2.5%. So it's like an exercise in silliness. If we want to do something positive. Let's help them cut it down. That's it.
Thank you. We'll move on to Supervisor Ron Frederick. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been arguing since last year that we should do nothing at all and let the exec come in with his budget as to what he thinks it ought to be. Okay? 0 I don't think is a realistic figure, but I've been arguing against not doing anything. The executive comes in with his budget, the finance committee does its job. What's wrong with that theory? What's wrong with that? Right now we get the exec to come in, we tell him 2.5, he comes in at 1.88. You know what we cut last year? Nothing. We cut some money out of borrowing, I think. We cut nothing. We had the department heads come in, they give us, they say, well, we've cut to the bone already. How do I know? I think we should do nothing. I think we should just take, I came here tonight and I thought, well, maybe I'll vote for the 2.5%. Now we're getting into this 0 stuff. Let's just vote down this 0 and then vote down this resolution all and let the exec come with his budget and let him live with it, and then we can do what we have to do with it. Does that make any sense to me? It does to me. Then the finance committee, maybe we can do our job instead of letting him do the job for us. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm voting no on both.
Thank you, Supervisor Ron Frederick. We'll move on to Supervisor Rose. You have the floor.
All right, thank you. I think this is one of the most important resolutions this board annually adopts. regarding the budget. And I would certainly urge you to continue this practice. Before we had this type of resolution, it was very, very typical to see 5% increases, 8% increases, and traditionally the Finance Committee, whoever was serving on that committee or this board, they have never made substantial changes in that budget. So that's why a resolution like this was authorized, because year after year, no matter who was on the board, the budget was largely passed intact as presented by the county executive. This county executive has had very low percentage increases, to his credit. But this is not directed toward a particular name who fills that position. This is a resolution which sets forth the public policy irrespective of who that county executive may be now or in the future. So I think that's why this is one of the most important resolutions this board annually considers. In the past, before the resolution, I'd emphasize this board, no matter who sat on it, didn't make any substantial changes in it. The budget resolution was generally passed. Second point I want to make is this. Many things that the county board does in this county and other counties is as a result of a mandate from the state legislature. County government is an arm of the state. We're not in the same position as a city, a village. We act as an agent for the state. So when the state says you've got to house certain state prisoners because there is a probation hold on those prisoners, we have no choice. We have no choice whether they are 10 or 50. We have to house them. And for years, the state has never, under this governor or any other governor, and this legislature or any other legislature has never paid for the full cost of housing of those prisoners. Now, what can we do about that? Absolutely nothing. They have a formula by which they annually distribute the money to the various counties for housing these various prisoners. It does not cover your costs. Who has to cover those costs? We have to cover those costs. So the participation in the pension system is another one. We're participating in the state pension system. And there are many, many programs that the Department of Human Services cooperates in and is authorized to do. Do we have a choice? We don't. We are not free to decide from dollar one or program one what to do. So it is well and good to say, well, I've been to another state, and in that other state the people are living well from what I see, and what's the difference? They have lower taxes. Well, perhaps you need to address that with the state legislature. You need to address that with this governor or this legislature. We've tried in the past when we talked about the fact that they weren't paying full dollar one for the full cost of a housing a prisoner. You know what we got? Regardless of whether Republicans or Democrats were in office, a deaf ear. A deaf ear. So speak to those legislators. When they come here, and I've suggested to the executive committee that we invite the legislators, let's bring some of these issues to their attention. Why is it that in these other states, seeing they aren't paying the taxes? We are. That's the question you need to start addressing with them.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Move on to Supervisor Alverman. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I gotta clarify a couple things here, but I think my point's been made by this debate here. I stick with the waste of time. What I meant by that is that this resolution means nothing. It's a guideline. It's been a guideline since we've had it. It's not been met. Sometimes it's been exceeded, sometimes not. We have a very diligent, conservative staff right now in all departments that does our budget. And I'll tell you when I believe it's time to have this discussion. And in this will be my 21st budget, I've known every page of that budget book. And I've gone to meetings that concern me. And I've asked questions that concern me. And urged cuts in certain areas, raising things in others. When I said silly and a waste of time, I meant this evening. I still think it is. I think there's probably a whole lot more lights and people urging zero, people urging this, people urging that. The time to talk about this is when we sit down with our departments and work on the budget. Decide if you're going to buy those computers, decide if you're going to build those highways, how much we bond, what we're going to do with a nursing home. Now, we had questions this evening about the nursing home. That is a self-funded bond, and we still get questions. And we get questions on the bonding that was put in the budget. And that everybody has a copy of their budget book. We went through this for months. So to recommend something tonight, I'll stick with it, stick by what I said. I think tonight discussing this is a waste of time.
Thank you, Supervisor. We'll move on to Supervisor Decker. You have the floor.
I have just three quick points, some comments on other comments that were made. People are saying that in the past, the levy was raised 5%, 6%, 7%. There's people on this board that voted to do that, sitting here, that voted to do that. Obviously, they didn't mind raising the levy that much. Just like to point that out. To another person's comments about getting it done in committee and things like that, and that's where it should be done. Last year, the PDEC committee removed $40,000 on the committee level in the PDEC budget. It went to finance, and they put it back in. We felt it was padded money that was padding the budget, and we took it out. Finance committee put it back in, rubber stamped what the county exec did. So don't tell me that the work is done in committee when they just stick it back, when the work we do just gets stuck back in the way that the county exec wants it. And lastly, just so you know, education wasn't cut this budget at the state level. It was funded $100 more per pupil. So don't use education and the state as an excuse for us raising our taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Decker. We'll move on to Supervisor Ron Frederick. You have the floor.
I just, the point I tried to make earlier was that before 2008, before the crash, new construction was going up 5%. So they could raise it 6% and 7% and spread it over the new construction and not increase the levy. That's not happened. It hasn't happened. So I guess what I'm saying is just let's not do anything. Let's vote this resolution down. Let's vote the amendment down. And let's just let the Finance Committee do its job after the exec does his job. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Ron Frederick. Move on to Supervisor Grady. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to end discussion on the amendment.
It's been moved by Supervisor Grady, seconded by Supervisor Rose. We're going to take a roll call on those who want to end debate, vote yes. Vote, and those who want to continue to debate, vote no. Vote yes if you want to end it. Vote no if you want to continue. Okay, the debate is ended. We've gathered the 2/3 vote to end debate. So now, what we'll be voting on is the amendment that's been put forth by Supervisor Poole and seconded by Supervisor Decker. The amendment would read, the Finance Committee Resolution 2016 Kenosha County Budget Advisory Levy Limit not to exceed 0? Is that okay with the maker? Is that what your goal was with that, sir? Okay, so I'm going to read it again from the Finance and Administration Committee, Resolution 2016 Kenosha County Budget Advisory Levy Objective not to exceed 0%. If you're in favor of that, vote yes. If you're against that, vote no. Okay, so that should fail there. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That fails. So we're going to go back to the original resolution as brought forth by the Finance and Administration Committee. From the Finance and Administration Committee Resolution 2016 Kenosha County Budget Advisory Levy Objective not to exceed 2.5%. If you're in favor of that, what's that? Okay, I'm sorry. Supervisor O'Day.
I'm just going to call a question in case there's any other.
You're going to call a question on this?
On this one now.
Very good. They got to call a question. Do we have a second on that by Supervisor Rose? Okay, we're going to have a vote. If you're in favor of calling the question, vote yes. That would mean end debate on this particular resolution. If you're the other way, vote no. Yes if you want to end debate. No if you want it to continue. Okay, so we're going to continue the debate then. Okay, debate will continue. Clear the lights, and who wishes to speak more on the round 3 or 4, or whichever way we want to go on this? Someone clearly didn't want to end debate, so I see no lights, so I will close it. Well, we'll just, are you on or off? On or off? Okay, I need to know. Supervisor Decker, you have the floor.
I don't have anything to say on this resolution. I just wanted to say some of us are vote no because we don't want to close debate and cut off anyone that may have a comment on it.
True. But they're allowed to. I'm not holding anyone's hands up here. So they're allowed to speak. It's free speech here. So going back, I'm going to read this a 4th time. Resolution 21 from Finance Administration Committee, Resolution 2016 Kenosha County Budget Advisory Levy Objective not to exceed 2.5%. If you're in, Jesus Christ. You want to speak on that?
Yes.
Supervisor Ritzloff?
I think my light's on, is it not?
It is now. So
I have a question for Mr. Gertzen, through the chair.
Mr. Gertzen, could you come to the chair table, please? Thank you.
Can you ask or describe the timing of this to us? I mean, is this the best time to do this? Could we wait, or does it not? I mean, can you give me your opinion as to why we're doing this right now when there's some things in this, or whatever? Just, do you understand my question? Why now?
Yeah,
okay.
I do. I think that we could always wait to do this. One trap we don't want to get into is you don't want to adopt the budget before the budget. You don't want to try to adopt the budget before the budget. But given that we have two separate processes and the board has adopted the one process, the one you're considering tonight, and given the fact that the other one is statutory, set by state law, as far as this process, I think the timing is fine. I mean, certainly there's many things we don't know. The state budget has been adopted, so we know that. We know the levy limits are set. We know what those are. So the estimate you have is relying on the levy limits that we have to abide by. There's still other things we don't know. like we'll get the property value and the new construction, we'll get a preliminary on July 31st. So, but I think, you know, this was the date that the policy set. You know, it's a fine time to do it, but there's always more you could know. But there really aren't that many more months before the budget anyway. I mean, we'll be finishing it in September and doing it in October. You wait much longer, you may as well just do the budget anyway. So.
Okay, thanks.
Does that seem to answer your question, sir?
Thank you.
Any other lights? Supervisor Rose.
Move the previous question.
Been moved. Give me a second on that. I don't know. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Grady. We gotta vote on it all over again. We're gonna have a roll call vote. If you're in favor of calling the question, vote yes. If you are against it, vote no. Okay, we can vote on it as presented. So now what we'll do is we'll clear the board. Seeing no lights. Question's been called, so we will be voting on Resolution 21 of the 2016 Kenosha County Budget Advisory Limit not to exceed 2.5%. If you're in favor of that, vote yes. If you're against it, vote no. Thank you. It's a simple majority too, right? 10. It passes, right? All right.
Right on the bottom.
Yeah, it passes 10 to 8. It was a simple majority vote, folks, so it does pass. Move on to Resolution 22, please.
Resolution 22 from Human Service and Finance Administration Committee, resolution to modify the 2015 budget for the Wisconsin Partnership Program Community Opportunity Grant Award. Hallman, yes. Gable, yes. Anita Johnson, yes. Decker, yes. Arrington, excused. Blau, yes. Rutzlaff, yes. Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, excused. O'Day, excused. Colmeyer, excused. Gens, yes. Brunig, yes. Dodge, yes.
Supervisor Hallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move resolution number 22.
Resolution 22 has been moved by Supervisor Hallman, seconded by Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Hallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This resolution builds on our understanding and handling regarding trauma-informed care as it pertains to toddlers. Prior to this, or prior to the implementation of this, our understanding and handling of trauma-informed care was really isolated to the Division of Children and Family Services. This grant resolution allows us now to bring in the Department of Health to work with our healthcare providers in Kenosha County to better deal and understand toddlers who are experiencing trauma or have experienced trauma. You'll note from the fifth whereas that the work hours that will be funded by this grant, once the money is expended, said person, said hours then go away. It is not permanent. If there are any questions, I can field those as best as I can, seeing that staff is not present. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hallman. Seeing no lights, this is a 2/3 vote. Yes if you're in favor, no if you're against, please. Passes unanimously. County Clerk.
Resolution 23 from Judiciary and Law Enforcement Committee regarding cabaret license Goodfellas Restaurant and Bar. Esposito, yes. Anita Johnson, yes. Boyd Frederick, yes. Arrington, excused. Ron Johnson, yes. Blau, yes. Poole, excused.
Supervisor Anita Johnson.
Thank you. I'd like to move Resolution 23 on behalf of the Judiciary and Law Enforcement Committee.
Resolution 23 has been moved by Supervisor Anita Johnson, seconded by Supervisor Boyd Frederick. Supervisor Anita Johnson, you have the floor.
This is an application from Goodfellas Restaurant Bar. It's located at 12015 Antioch Road in Trevor in the town of Salem. They've completed their probationary period. It was unremarkable without any untoward incidents. And at this time, it was recommended by Captain Weicker that we grant them their probationary license, grant them their regular cabaret license. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no lights, simple majority. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, County Clerk.
24, from Public Works, Facility, and Finance Administration Committees, a resolution to accept dedication of land for public road purposes. Alberman, yes. Grady, yes. Boyd Frederick, yes. Galitsky, yes. Poole, yes.
Supervisor Elverman.
I move Resolution 24, Mr. Chairman.
Resolution 24 has been moved by Supervisor Elverman, seconded by Supervisor Grady. Supervisor Elverman. Let me excuse myself here. I think I got a little bit ahead of myself. Pardon me for that. I'm going to have the county clerk read in the finance members. Sorry about that. I guess I wanted to defray any extra time here. Go ahead.
Finance Committee, Rose, yes. Ron Frederick excused. O'Day excused. Brunig, yes. Dodge, yes. Gens, yes. Colmeyer excused.
All right, sorry, Supervisor Elverman, you have the floor again. Sorry,
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Chairman. This resolution covers some parcels of land that Kenosha County currently owns. What we are asking in this resolution is to transfer the ownership to the, for public road purposes. We need to do that even though we're in current ownership. It has to be quitclaim from Kenosha County to Kenosha County for those purposes. The purpose on Highway F and on Highway K would be for future road work. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Elverman. Seeing no lights, simple majority vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. County Clerk.
Communications from Andy Ambula regarding future items scheduled before the Planning Development Extension Education Committee.
Receive and file.
Approval of the July 7th minutes by Vice Chair Brunig.
Vice Chair Bruning.
I would move the minutes of July 7th, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Blau. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn by Supervisor Anita Johnson, seconded by Supervisor Grady. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Have a good evening, folks.